Hello and welcome to this MBL Seminars webinar with me, Clive Smith. Today's course is called Prosecution Appeals to the Court of Appeal, Guidance and Tips. Before I talk a little bit more about the course, I'll just introduce myself and then give you a brief overview of what we're going to be discussing today. As the slide says, my name is Clive Smith and I'm a barrister, called to the bar now back in 2003, a little over 20 years ago, and spent just over 10 years in practice in London in chambers doing criminal defence work mainly, although obviously lots of experience of having been prosecuted and reasons why the prosecution might want to appeal my sometimes successful and sometimes unsuccessful arguments before the courts. Did criminal defence work for about 11 years, doing everything from road traffic and shoplifting to rape and murder, and about half a dozen or so trips to the Court of Appeal as well. This course, the idea for this course really spawned out of the fact that, of course, there is also another webinar on defence appeals to the Court of Appeal. Prosecution appeals to the Court of Appeal are relatively new in the scheme of criminal practice overall, but they've been with us for about 20 years now. Of course, they were brought in, breach of statute brought in the Criminal Justice Act 2003, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. So what are we going to be looking at today? Well, let me just give you a brief overview. Firstly, we're going to have a chat about what decisions are considered to be terminatory rulings and can therefore be challenged. What decisions can be made subject to an appeal? Secondly, what are the procedural steps prosecutors must comply with to ensure a case doesn't fall at the first hurdle? It's a very important part, this, and indeed some cases have fallen at the first hurdle. Thirdly, practical considerations. What happens to the jury? Do we keep them? Do we discharge them? What do we do? We'll talk about that as well. And then next, we'll talk about what avenues are open to get to the Court of Appeal. Is it only the Court of Appeal that can grant leave, for example? And then finally, of course, what happens if the appeal is successful? And along with that, I'm going to mention some case law as well, some case law that has come out of such decisions.